Key 2. The High Priestess. Gimel, third letter of the Hebrew alphabet, is a double letter. Its name means camel. Because camels are used for transportation, for carrying goods from one place to another, the letter name suggests travel, communication, commerce, and like ideas. Because merchants and pilgrims use camels in making journeys together, Gimel suggests association, combination, coexistence, partnership, and the like. Because a camel has means for carrying extra supplies of water, it symbolizes moisture. Finally, the camel is the ship of the desert, and its humps look something like a crescent. Gimel is represented in English by the letter G, which has also a hard and a soft pronunciation. Hard as in girl, soft as in germanium. The numeral value of Gimel in Hebrew arithmetic, and in reckoning the numeration of Hebrew words, is 3. The moon is the celestial body assigned to Gimel. First, because the moon is a satellite, accompanying the earth. Second, because the moon waxes and wanes, just as a caravan is first seen as a tiny dust cloud on the rim of the desert, then grows larger and larger until it stops a while at some oasis city, and then grows smaller and smaller as it journeys thence on its way to its next destination. Third, because the lunar crescent resembles the shape of a camel's humps. Also because, as the camel is the ship of the desert, so is the moon, the ship of the skies. Finally, the astrological nature of the moon is cold and moist. The moon is the astrological symbol of personality, and of the memories carried from one incarnation to another by the subconscious mind. In our color scale, the tint assigned to the moon is blue, corresponding to the musical note G sharp, or A flat. As a double letter, Gimel designates the pair of opposites, peace and strife. For, as in the world, peace and war are mainly dictated by the conditions of commerce, communication, and transportation, so in human personality, adjustment or maladjustment are largely determined by the response of subconsciousness to the things and people with whom we are brought into communication. Uniting intelligence is the mode of consciousness attributed to Gimel. As transportation, camel and caravan, brings distant places nearer together and establishes communication between them, so does subconsciousness, which is the connecting medium between human personalities, unite us to one another, regardless of distance. Subconsciousness is the agency of telepathic communication. Below is the direction attributed to Gimel. That which is below is secondary, subordinate, dependent, under control, subject to command, obedient. All these ideas are clearly related to the idea of camel as an obedient beast of burden. They relate in consciousness to the subordinate element of personal subconsciousness, at all times amenable to control by suggestions which originate in the mental activities symbolized in tarot by the magician, who represents self-consciousness. The title, High Priestess, means literally chief feminine elder, or primary receptive aspect of the life power. In Hindu philosophy, this is Prakriti, the pre-cosmic root substance, which is the substratum beneath all the objective planes of existence. Thus the woman in Key 2 is in one sense identical with the first mother, or first matter of the alchemists, who often call this prima materia their Virgin Diana. Diana is the goddess of the crescent moon. She is also the great Hecate of Greek occult philosophy. Hecate, often confused in ancient mythology with Luna, was supposed to have all secret powers of nature at her command. In fact, the High Priestess corresponds to all the virgin goddesses of the ancient world, to Artemis, guardian and helper of childbirth, to Maia, mother of Hermes, to Bona Dea, who, out of modesty, never left her bower or let herself be seen of men, and to Cybele, whose sanctuaries were caves. Dr. Waite says, quote, "She is the spiritual bride and mother, the daughter of the stars, the queen of the borrowed light, but this is the light of all." End quote. Thus, she also represents Eve before her union with Adam. Her number, 2, has been explained heretofore as a symbol of duplication, reflection, copying, transcription, reproduction, and so on. It relates definitely to memory, the basic function of subconsciousness. The number 2 also suggests the ideas of duplicity, deception, untruth, illusion, error, and delusion. This is correct, because subconsciousness repeats and elaborates the mistaken results of faulty, superficial, self-conscious observation. Being at all times uncritically amenable to suggestion, and, at the same time, the channel of telepathic communication, subconsciousness is the source of most of the foolish notions which cause our maladjustments. Something of this lies behind the biblical allegory that Eve was the means of Adam's temptation and fall. In contrast to the magician, who stands upright in a garden, the high priestess is seated within the precincts of a temple. The walls of the building are blue, and so are the vestments of this virgin priestess. Blue, the color assigned to the moon, and to the element of water, represents the primary root substance, the cosmic mind stuff, which is the element particularly attributed to the creative world. The high priestess herself is a symbol of this root substance. The 2 pillars between which she sits are those of Solomon and Hermes. Opposite in color, but alike in form, they represent affirmation, white pillar bearing the letter Yod, initial of the word Yakin, and negation, the black pillar bearing the letter Beth, initial of the word Boaz. For strength, Boaz, is rooted in resistance or inertia, which is the negation of the activity which is the establishing principle, Jachin, of all things. The high priestess sits between the pillars because she is the equilibrating power between the yes and the no, the initiative and the resistance, the light and the darkness. Alike in form, close to each other, opposite in color, the pillars represent 3 laws of the association of ideas and of memory. We associate things similar, things near together in space or time, things sharply contrasted. The bases of the pillars are cubes. Thus, they repeat the symbolism of the high priestess's seat, which is a cubic stone. This will be explained in a subsequent paragraph. The capitals of the pillars, borrowed from Egyptian architecture, are in the form of lotus buds. They are buds, not opened flowers. In this detail, they differ from the capitals in the Rider version of the High Priestess, but follow the design of the as yet unpublished esoteric tarot. The reason the capitals are buds is that the High Priestess, as a symbol of virginity, is, in some measure, a type of latent or undeveloped power. In the state of subconsciousness here symbolized, the forces of subconsciousness have not come to full bloom. The veil between the pillars hints that the High Priestess is Virgo intacta. It is a phallic symbol of virginity, but is embroidered with palms, male, and pomegranates, female, as if to suggest the union of positive and negative forces. Subconsciousness is only potentially reproductive in the aspect represented by key 2. It is, so to say, covered by a veil. Only when this veil is rent or penetrated by concentrated impulses originating at the self-conscious level may the creative activities of subconsciousness be released and actualized. Compare the arrangement of the palms and pomegranates on the veil with the diagram of the tree of life at the back of the book, And you will see that the position of the high priestess corresponds to the path of Gimel, descending from Kether, the crown, at the top of the diagram, to Tifereth, beauty, at the center. Note also that the number of Tifereth, 6, corresponds to the 6 sides of the cube whereon the high priestess sits. The high priestess wears a silver crown, reminding us that silver is the metal of the moon. This crown shows the crescents of the waxing and waning moon, with her full orb between. It is the horned diadem of the Egyptian Isis, another of the feminine deities personifying the root matter of all things. She sits on a cubic stone, a symbol of salt, which crystallizes in perfect cubes, and a reminder of the saltness of that mystical sea which is associated with the Virgin Mary. Since the time of Pythagoras, moreover, it has been taught openly that the cube is the regular solid representing earth, or actual material manifestation. Thus, the high priestess sits on a cube because the basis of all subconscious mental activity is what has actually occurred, what actually exists. This underlying reality is what is designated in Hebrew by the name Yod-He-Vav-He, Jehovah, and to this word the figures required to define the proportions of a cube have special reference. Every cube has 6 sides, 8 points or corners, and 12 edges or boundary lines. The numbers required to express a cube's peculiar limitations being 6, 8, and 12, their sum is 26. And this is the sum of the values of the Hebrew letters Yod, He, Vav, He, or Jehovah. What actually exists, what really is, what materialists and idealists alike misunderstand and misinterpret, is the real presence of that which was, is, and shall be. This real presence is the basis of all subconscious activity. The high priestess wears a blue-white robe, suggesting coldness and moisture, which are the astrological properties of the moon, and the characteristics of the element of water. The folds of this robe show a shimmering radiance like that of moonlight on water, and below the white pillar, this garment seems to flow out of the picture like a stream. It symbolizes the stream of consciousness, familiar to students of psychology. In tarot, the robe of the high priestess is the source of the river and of the pools which appear in several subsequent major trumps. The scroll in the woman's lap is that of memory. In some versions of this key, it is a book, half open. This is the record of past events, of all mental and physical states, indelibly impressed in subconsciousness. Subconsciousness is both universal and personal. Thus, the memory record includes the past events of race history, the past events of the history of the planet, and the past events of this whole cycle of cosmic manifestation. Hence, the scroll is inscribed with the word Torah, which is the phonetic equivalent of the Hebrew word Torah, or law. Yet, this word is also related to the Latin rota, from which, as explained in chapter 3, the very name tarot is derived. Natural law is the cosmic subconscious record of every event in the innumerable cycles and sub-cycles of the life power's self-expression. In the rider pack, there is a yellow crescent at the feet of the high priestess. This is good lunar symbolism, but it confuses the symbolic issues. This will be better understood after you have read the explanation of the Empress in the next chapter. The solar cross of equal arms on the high priestess's breast shows the union of positive, upright, and negative, horizontal, male and female, active and passive, originating and duplicating elements. It also foreshadows the completion of the entire cycle represented by the 22 tarot keys, because this cross of equal arms is the original form of the Hebrew letter Tav, the final letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Again, this same cross stands for Hecate, who, among other things, was patroness of all crossroads, according to Greek mythology. Finally, the arms of the cross are related to the number 4, or square of 2, as are the square sides of the cube.